Okay, Tomas, hi. Thanks for joining me. I've actually been to your home country. I arrived less than an hour ago. We talked a little bit about Brno. The food there is amazing. But besides you being from Brno, can you do a short introduction about yourself? How did you actually end up making podcasts? Because it was not your first job or your first profession.
So firstly, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you everyone who's here with us, and bonus points for speaking positively about Brno and about my amazing country. So my name is Tomas Loucky. I'm self-proclaimed LinkedIn's podcast guy, which is a funny title. I like it because it's a bit of exaggeration and at the same time motivation and inspiration to live up to. I started with my podcast probably, it's crazy, but it's going to be 2 years soon. I just released, I think, 18th episode this week. And in the beginning, I started speaking with people from creative industries because back then I worked in VFX, which is visual effects. And I had access to some just amazing people who work on really impressive projects, and I enjoyed talking about it. And I also, before I also studied film, so I could speak like with people from film industry and stuff like that. But over time, I started using LinkedIn, and probably as many people here, I discovered the potential of the LinkedIn. And because I was interested in the platform, I started meeting some amazing people there. I got an idea that I can basically brand myself as LinkedIn's podcast guy. And it's been, I don't know, quite a few episodes since I've been speaking only with people from LinkedIn. That's also something that I plan to focus on in the future. And I was fortunate to speak with some amazing minds that I would never expect to speak with before. And that's something that I've been doing. I plan to continue in the future. I really enjoy it. And thanks to this, because podcasting is my passion, I also started my podcasting agency where I hope and I want to help people with their podcast, whether it's to start a new one, improve existing one, or something else. But also need to mention that it's not my job. What I do is digital marketing. So it's something that I plan to focus on in the future more. But on top of basically building my brand, doing my own podcast, I try to juggle everything, and we'll see how it goes in the future.
Since you said that you want to help people with like starting podcasts, let's say that I am a B2B company and I know that video is currently the most effective format of getting the content out to people. Where should I actually start? Is it too late to start podcast? Because it seems like everybody does podcasts these days.
If you
And
don't have
is
one,
it,
you're not relevant. No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
And should every B2B company actually have their own podcast?
I think that's a good question, but I would say that if you want to have it just for the sake of being trendy,
Having it?
you don't have to. But if you answer just a few questions and you see that there is a potential, it's needed, and then it's something that you can stay consistent with, I would say definitely, because there are many benefits. So just to mention a few, as you said, it's a saturated market. There are so many podcasts out there. But then it's important to mention that not that many podcasts make it past, I don't know, episode 10. So if you want to go for it, make sure that you can stay consistent. Also, of course, there should be audience for your podcast. So is it actually something that is needed? Are there people who are going to listen to it? So it's worth researching if there are actually podcasts in that area that you want to be in. Maybe there are, but at the same time, you might have something extra to offer, something different. And lastly, I think it's also important if it's something that you will enjoy, because in the beginning you may not see traction. So I think that's something that might be demotivating. So I would say if it's something that you enjoy, it always makes it easier, and it allows you, just to improve it, to continue going with it, even if the numbers aren't increasing. But to kind of sum it up, I think there is definitely potential. And if you answer these questions, I think that I would encourage you to go for it. Of course, I'm biased, but I think that we will touch upon the benefits later on. So my answer would be yes, it's worth considering.
Go for it. Okay. You mentioned that not a lot of podcasts go beyond episode 10. Why do you think so many podcasts actually fail? Where's the reason? Just consistency or?
I'm honestly not sure if it's episode 10 or if it's like episode 6 or what's the number. But I think it's about maybe wrong expectations, because I feel like that sometimes people think that it's easy to monetize or to go viral, but then it's different. For example, someone with little to no online presence starts a podcast. I think you need to be realistic, and in the beginning, you're probably not going to have a big audience. When compared to someone who's already got a huge online presence, of course, then you launch the first episode and you've already got the audience. So I think that people might have wrong expectations. Firstly, it might be demotivating in the beginning when you don't get really any audience, listeners, feedback, or you might think that that is something that will make you rich. So really be realistic. I'm not saying that it's impossible to get numbers straight from the beginning. Of course, it's possible, but then the question is actually how many people achieve that. So yeah, that's what I would say that's about the expectations.
And I think it's not just about the monetization always. Maybe some people or companies start the podcast just to have additional stream of content or to actually do a lead generation through it. So I think it's not primary goal of each podcast host to actually monetize it. For example, myself, I started this podcast because as we talked before, I have at least one conversation with fellow creators per week. And it would be a shame not to record it and to actually share this knowledge with our network, So it's not, my goal is not to actually monetize it, but to have like additional resource hub for people that are doing B2B marketing and want to learn from lead generation to community building to podcasting and everything else. And after a while, if I manage to go doing this like for a year or two, probably this could be like a little B2B academy. I don't know. I
We
just
hope
got an
so.
idea.
You have to keep accountable to what you said. But just to follow up on what you said, before when I said that, I didn't mean that it's like the primary reason to make money out of it. Because, for example, when I started, I didn't also start to become rich or something. I started because I felt like I had access to these people. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to create something. But as you say, there are many other motivations that can lead to launching your own podcast, whether it's for the like a single person, such as me when I started, or company. So you just mentioned something. So for example, it can be to create a content which then you can repurpose on social media, website, or other material. It can help you with thought leadership, establishing authority, helping with the brand name of the company, and growing your network. And there are so many other benefits. So it was just to say that if it sounded like before that I said that it's just for the sake of monetizing it, it's not what I meant, but you raised a good point.
I get it. Yeah. When I started this podcast, actually, I wanted to just same as you do to have a guest each time that's actually a professional from the industry. But some of the podcast hosts actually run the show themselves. Some of them have like group conversations. Some of them do a little bit of both. What do you think is the right format? Is there actually like a blueprint for a podcasting or whatever you like to do?
I would say again that there is not simple answer to this. I think again it depends because the circumstances for whether it's single person podcast or for the company are different. Because for example, you may be in the industry where there are already podcasts that do, let's say, expert interviews. So you may not want to do that one because there are already those, but you may have a unique angle. So instead of doing those, you can go a different route and, for example, do solo episodes. Because let's be honest, sometimes if it's someone who can speak in engaging way and has something valuable to share, I personally don't mind listening to such a person because you do like a shopping, cooking or something and just listen in the background and you learn something. So I would say there is no simple answer to this. It depends on circumstances. So it can be like either expert interviews, such as one person talking to the other person, which probably is the most common. Then it can be just solo episodes. If it's someone who wants to position himself or herself as a thought leader, it works as well. Or it can be actually more people, such as some kind of discussion around the round table, sharing different opinions about different people. So I would say be creative, see what there is, what are your resources. Maybe you have access to more people, maybe you don't have access to anyone, but don't limit yourself. And explore and see what would work the best.
Okay, you mentioned that you can do like a solo episode if if we actually can talk and engage audience in such way. Do you think you need to have like established personal brands for people to listen to your solo episodes? Or can you grow community if you, for example, I start on LinkedIn today with 0 followers, I start with a podcast. Can I grow community around my podcast with just me being in it?
Mm-hmm. I think that you can, because for example, with LinkedIn, imagine you do one episode, and that's when the power of repurposing comes in, because sometimes people overthink, like, what am I going to post about? What am I going to write? I don't know. Although I, I don't know how it can be so difficult because there are so many ideas. But if you do, let's say, one episode, you can use it for several reels. You can do carousels, you can do regular written content, you can do posts and discussions. So I think actually it might be an advantage because you do one episode and then you just work with that one episode. Of course, it depends how long it is, what information you share, what it is about, but I don't think so. So I would say don't be afraid, start and just go with it, because sometimes people overthink it, try to have, I don't know, perfect setup, perfect intro, outro, and stuff like that. Whereas if you just start, put yourself out there, it makes it much easier. You improve along the way, and I would say it's actually an advantage. That's what people say. Like when started on LinkedIn, I wish I started earlier. I can say same with the podcast. I wish I started earlier as well because I would have more experience. I would be posting content earlier, and I would be able to improve podcast earlier as well. So my answer would be, don't be afraid if you don't
Just
have any
do it.
audience. Just do it, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that like professional production matters at all and professional design. Of course, it looks great when somebody posts like a carousel that looks beautiful and everything, but if it doesn't have the content inside, the meaningful content that will actually give you some new knowledge, even the design can help it. I remember when I first signed up for Justin Welsh's course, he didn't use any of the professional equipment. He actually recorded through Loom. But the value you got inside the course was so much better than any other creator. So I think it's better to have like value in the content than focusing on professional production and where's the light gonna stand and so on.
It's, of course, I don't want to compare, but for example, when I was starting out, I was also like overthinking, how am I going to do intro? How long is it going to be? What's the structure going to be like? And because I kind of did it on budget, I remember I was recording with Zoom, and in Zoom, with free version, you can do 30 minutes, then it stops, and then 30 minutes. So I used to do like with the guest 30 minutes, then we stopped, and then we joined again. I was just recording with the headphones. So don't let it, I would say again, don't let it limit yourself, and just do it with available resources.
Yeah, I agree. You also have guests on your podcasts, and some of them are like really high profile creators with more than 1,000 followers and so on. How do you actually approach those potential guests? How do you get them on your show?
That's actually something that quite a few people ask me, but I'm afraid there is no secret to it. It's pretty much reaching out via LinkedIn. I think there were maybe just a few episodes before that I communicated with the guest over email, which was because I also did a few episodes with some YouTubers before. But now with LinkedIn, it's all over LinkedIn. And I think something that is important is to build some kind of relationship before that. Because of course I can reach out to someone, introduce myself, and politely invite them to the podcast. But I think it's better if you start following the person and at least engage with their content so that they become aware of you. You kind of get to know each other. And not only then, it's probably more likely that they will agree to join you on the podcast. But I feel like that then actually when you are recording, it feels like that you know each other because you've been following that person
for a while,
showing up, interacting, and then it feels like that you are speaking with friends, although it's someone from, I don't know, the other part of the world, a completely different career and stuff like that. But I think it comes to building that relationship. And yes, the way that I approach people and kind of do the whole communication is over LinkedIn. Again, it depends, because understandably, if they are bigger creators, they get so many DMs that I'm happy that they even reply to me, because not going to lie, I'm pretty sure Al that you experience as well, but sometimes it's overwhelming with DMs because LinkedIn is not your work. You got life outside and then LinkedIn on top of it. So if there are people who respond and active, it's much appreciated and much easier. And yeah, it's just pretty much over the LinkedIn. But I would say something good to keep in mind is that, of course, I don't approach, let's say, creator with 500,000 followers. I also try to stay realistic. So let's say, I don't know, some time back, I wouldn't approach a creator with, I don't know, 100K, because firstly, I need to be realistic. Why would they join me? And secondly, I also want to feel comfortable speaking to such a person, because even if they agreed to join me, I still want to do kind of best performance for the interview. And I don't know if I would feel comfortable and confident speaking with such a person. So then it comes to experience, because as I spoke with few people, then I feel like that I can reach out to bigger creators and feel more confident that I will be able to lead interview that I won't be ashamed of and that I won't lose the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same as with the sales, as with every other relationship. First, you need to gain their trust. Because why else would people talk to you? Why else would people buy from you? Why else would people get into relationship with you? I mean, trust is, I think, acts as some kind of basis for everything we do in life.
And it's the same when some people approach me to join them on the podcast, which I always appreciate it. And I feel grateful that, of course, someone wants to speak with me. But then if it's a person that I've literally never seen, because even from engagement on my posts, then it feels like that maybe they might be reaching out just for the sake of getting, now I don't want to sound like a big creator, but like someone bigger, just for the sake of getting views. So even if those people showed some effort and I, for example, remember them from my post or for engagement, it would increase the likelihood of me accepting as well. But if it's someone that I've no idea about and they make no effort, then do some effort.
I agree. Let's say I want to start a podcast. Is it better to do like a broad content, or should I pick a niche and focus on that niche only?
In my opinion, it's better to niche. Don't niche too much so that there is still audience, but still go niche. Again, just example from me when I started. As I said, I used to speak with people from creative industries. And I remember when I discovered that I want to focus on LinkedIn, I feel like it made everything so much easier, because it was easier who to speak to, how to lead the conversation, kind of how to approach my posts and everything. And I also think that it helped me to position myself in the eyes of the audience, because you are speaking with creative people. There are so many people like that. But when it comes to LinkedIn, yes, there are already some people who do that, but there are many less. So I would say niche to differentiate yourself, to stand out, to make it easier for yourself as well, so that you know who to speak to, what to speak about. I don't know how to tailor all the content around it, but at the same time, make sure that it's not too niche. Because you can niche too much and then there will not be audience or really people to speak to. But yes, niche. That would be my advice.
Do you think I decided to go with B2B marketing? I didn't want to go to niche like only LinkedIn, only lead generation and so on. Do you think the choice was good? Because I think I can host many more creators, and I think I can cover like the whole B2B marketing community and stuff.
Do you mean like that you would start a podcast that would be about B2B marketing on LinkedIn, just so that I understand the question?
The podcast in general. Is it good to choose B2B marketing? Is too broad? Or should I focus more into niches like lead generation and so on?
I would personally feel like that it's quite broad. Although I don't really listen to any podcast when it comes to it, but I can imagine that there are already. Because it's quite a popular topic. It's a broad topic. Of course, if you are a big person already, you've got audience, it might work, but I think that it will be better to niche down. I feel like that it's too broad.
Okay, I'll think about it. Do you remember Clubhouse actually?
Oh,
The
yes,
app?
yes.
Okay, do you think the app was called focused on audio only? Do you think like audio podcasting is dead? Should people that start their own podcast focus on video, actually on both, or is it not that? Because actually I can't remember any of the creators that would do only audio now.
You made me think. I'm pretty sure that I listened to some that are audio only, but I cannot think now. But I don't think it's that. But yes, there are definitely advantages if it's video as well, because let's be honest. I think everyone can see that on LinkedIn quite regularly. You see that the videos are the future. Now we've got the YouTube, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to grow. But at the same time, for example, if you don't have access to video resources, time, or something, I would say don't let it limit you. So you can still do the audio. I think that comes back to what I mentioned before. That, for example, sometimes I listen to podcasts, I don't know, when I cook or when I do something in the background. So I don't really watch it. I just listen to it. So I think that if it's engaging without the video, definitely go for it. It still works. But if you got resources, access, or you just can do video, do that because it helps you a lot. Coming back to example of LinkedIn, you can repurpose the content into Reels, which I think, again,
you cover the whole variety of new channels if you do the video.
And it's just speaking about LinkedIn. You've got other platforms. You've got YouTube, which I think honestly is going to grow a lot as well, where you can upload the whole episode and Reels at the same time. And outside of this, I think once you've cut your Reels, you can just put it on other platforms as well, whether it's Instagram Reels, TikTok, or something else. So I think there is a huge potential. I would prioritize video if possible, but at the same time, I wouldn't let it to stop you if you simply cannot do the video. Or maybe you're not comfortable, which then give it a try to find out. But if you can do only audio, I think that's fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I go on a walk each day in the afternoon just to clear my head after the whole day. And I usually listen to audio podcasts there. I just turn my head off and listen to, I listen to Rob Dyer. I don't know if you heard about him, but he's like my favorite, the mindset mentor at the moment. But when I'm at home, when I want to like learn something new, see what another creator has to say, I go on YouTube and watch the full episode there. But only if I can focus on the video too. If I'm doing anything else, then I'll go on Spotify and actually turn the audio episode. So it also depends on the occasion that your target audience is currently in.
Yeah, I think just as you mentioned example, my favorite one would be Modern Wisdom with Chris Williamson.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that before he didn't do video. And he's already been my favorite because I think he's just amazing interviewer. He's got amazing guests and there's so much to learn from him. So I've always been listening to him. And I remember then he started doing the video, which by the way looks like the whole cinematic experience. So it's definitely worth watching. But it's just to mention that I used to listen to him even before when he didn't do the video. And then he started doing the video. And it just brought like another layer of better experience. But he already managed to establish himself as a great, honestly, one of the best podcasters. And I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't do video before. So it's just one of the examples.
Yeah, I think you already answered my next question. Do you think a person starting a podcast should focus only on one platform or distribute the episodes to as many channels as possible and test what works on which channel?
Maybe not as many as possible, but yes, do more platforms. Because I think if you distribute to as many as possible, it might feel like too big task because yes, you do the content and it's not as hard to redistribute it, but I think that for some people it might feel a bit overwhelming. But I would say don't limit yourself. At least use streaming services such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even others. Then put it on YouTube because I think that YouTube definitely is going to grow and it's going to be popular. And then, since most of us are here from LinkedIn, use LinkedIn as well. And then if you've got time and if you want, just put those shorts to other platforms. I personally do that as well. I put it on TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I just put it there because I've got the Reels. So I do it, and you never know. Although I haven't had the viral one yet, but maybe in the future it happens. So
Okay.
I would say experiment, see what works, because that's after all the best way how to find out.
Yeah, and learn on the way. Another question. Do you, when you record the whole episode, I see that you repurpose like short videos. What's the best way to repurpose? Do you use any kind of special tools? Do you edit them on your own?
I promise that I don't get a commission, but I do it with Riverside. I think that the Riverside, that's after all the one that we are now using with, I think it's just a perfect tool. I've been using that for a long time. I wish I started probably earlier because it made everything easier. I think it's such a powerful platform because I was actually telling Al before we started recording that quite often what happens is that when I open Riverside, I see the features that they edit and that weren't there before. So it's just to show that they are constantly innovating. But there are also, of course, other tools maybe that might work for you. In my opinion, this is the best one. And that's pretty much where I do all the work. I edit it by myself because once I do the episode, I also want to be the one that chooses what shorts to cut because there are like certain sections that I feel like could resonate. And I always try to pick something that would be just interesting on LinkedIn. Of course, because the guests come from LinkedIn, there are like some recurring topics that we discussed in the episodes, obviously LinkedIn. But then I don't want to be posting like every week, like the question, hey, what are your tips on how to grow LinkedIn? I think that will be a bit boring. I think what makes it unique and interesting that each guest is from different backgrounds. So for example, now we talked about AI and newsletters. The week before it was about automation before sales. So I think then each person has something interesting. And because I'm the one who's editing the episode and who did the interview, I know what parts I want to show on LinkedIn. And it's not only to come up with something that might be, let's say, viral or engaging, but it's also to educate people or to show something that is interesting and maybe they haven't seen before. So yes, I'm the one who actually edits that. Then I work with some editors, but then I try to make the work easier for them. So I tell them like what section specifically to edit, because then I feel like that if they put the effort and time into it to edit in a certain section, then it would be shame if it was, something boring like, hey, what did you have for breakfast? So yes, I do it with Riverside. And then after doing the reels, I also try to repurpose it with carousels. So each week I try to do a carousel, which is 5 key takeaways from the episode. And after recording each episode, I try to come up with 5 lessons that are worth remembering. For example, keep showing up, or I don't know, find the perfect environment and stuff like that. Then I write some text, and then again I work with some people from LinkedIn, and we do like a collaboration carousel, which highlights key lessons from this episode, and that's how I repurpose it. Of course, I could be doing more, such as written posts, share more reels, but then I like to keep my LinkedIn content varied so that it's not about podcast every day. I mean, sorry, it's related to podcast every day, but it's not about the episode I did.
Okay, I get it. How much time do you actually spend editing the whole episode into shorter pieces and into carousels? And so
Yeah,
on?
that's a good question. I was actually thinking about it. And truth is that with the tools, again, such as, for example, Riverside, you've got the feature that with one click, it can clean you all the filler words from the episode. Which, yes, it's awesome, AI innovations, it makes your life easier and everything. But then when you do it, it also, because it's AI, it also cuts the parts that you don't really want to cut out. Because, for example, you laugh with someone, which sometimes you want to keep there because you want to convey the energy or the atmosphere to the audience, or it, because it's not perfect, it cuts certain parts that you don't want to cut out, or it just makes it that it doesn't feel that natural. So I don't use it for the whole episode. So then it's a bit time consuming because I go through the whole recording and I edit it by myself. Thanks to Riverside, it's easier because before I think I used to use this tool. It was called Audacity. Oh my god, it's nostalgia. I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, it takes me time, I don't know, a few hours. And also sometimes you get like a sections that you just want to cut out. I don't know, for example, I was just drinking and don't want to show it, or there is just someone who walks into the room of the guest. So I want to make sure that I cut these parts out. So that's what I do. Throughout the process, I also cut the reels. With the reels, I cut them differently because I feel like that the reels, I try to keep them under 1 minute. And that's actually when I want it to be kind of quick and punchy. So that's when I actually cut it like a quickly. That's when I don't mind. So that's what I do. And after that, because I try to repurpose it even more, such as for the carousel, newsletter, and so email newsletter and LinkedIn newsletter, so that it takes me a bit more time. So I don't know. I feel like that it's at least a day of work because it's also about the communication. I need to speak with the person who's going to edit. I need to speak with the person who's going to do the newsletter. Everyone is different. Sometimes it's a bit easier collaboration. Sometimes it's a bit harder. Not to complain, but you never know. So yeah, it takes some time, not going to lie. But then I try to do as quality as I can when it comes to available time and resources, if it makes sense.
But you get like how many pieces of content out of one episode?
I think the question
in
is
average.
How many? I always do the same. So like from my episode, I always cut 6 reels because all those reels go to YouTube, but on LinkedIn I share only 2 reels. And also I share it with the guest in case he or she wants to use them. Then obviously I've got an episode. I've got a LinkedIn carousel. I use it for newsletter, email newsletter, which I've got on Substack. And then I also do LinkedIn newsletter. And I think that's pretty much it. I feel like that's more than enough.
And yeah, it is. It's a lot of work, but I think name me one piece of content that can give you so much like smaller pieces of additional added value. I don't think only video can do it, in my opinion.
I think video as well. I feel like that after all, when you do the video, that's actually what you can put everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I put it on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Whereas when it comes to carousel, I share it only on LinkedIn. I guess I could try to do a different format and repurpose it for Instagram, but then there is only so much that I can do, and I cannot spend a whole life doing that.
Yeah, sure. Do you actually encourage guests to share the invitation to podcast, to share the content you create out of each episode? And how do you do that? Do they do this on their own, or you need to like encourage them?
I feel like that's a bit tricky one. I always mention that any kind of promotion or support is appreciated, but then I understand that the guests have their own like schedules and posting content. So if it doesn't align with what they do, I understand, and I don't want to be like a pushy or something. So I always say that any kind of promotion, support, or sharing is greatly appreciated. But at the same time, I understand if they don't want to, or they simply cannot, or it doesn't fit with their strategy. So, but it's always nice when they do. Let's be honest, it's always appreciated. And when there is support or some kind of gratitude, it's really nice.
I forgot to mention, actually, I asked you about the tools you use for podcasts. I'm on Riverside also. Because I think it's easiest to use in terms of like repurposing the content. In my opinion, Opus Clip is like the best if you don't want to spend too much time editing like your shorts. They have quite capable AI behind it. Beside that, I can't remember any other tool beside captions for mobile phones, as I think they are there's still a lot of room for improvement, but once they like put more energy into B-rolls and editing, AI editing, I think they can really get huge just to help other creators to decide which tools are the best. Okay, where do you think the podcast industry is heading in like 3 to 5 years? I think every creator on LinkedIn and Instagram will have their own podcast, or where are we headed?
That's definitely going to grow. I think that obviously AI is going to play a big role. I already can see that, for example, when I was starting out with Riverside in the beginning, that if I'm not mistaken, they didn't really have many AI features or none at all. And now you've got quite a few. And it's not only when it comes to the tools. I'm pretty sure that you've seen like the podcast or the ideas about the podcast when someone was doing the episode with people that are not alive anymore. I think I saw it with, I don't know if it was Joe Rogan with someone. So this is quite crazy. So I think that AI is definitely going to play a big role. I'm both excited and scared. But at the same time, I would say that it's not going to replace the human element, or at least I hope. Besides that, I think that podcasts are going to grow. I think that whether it's YouTube or Spotify, or maybe even rise of any other platforms, I think it's been growing lately, and I like to see the competition between these platforms because it makes it just more exciting for us. And yeah, you can see the rise of Reels on LinkedIn, which I think kind of sends a signal that this is something that is growing and there is a potential in the future. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be similar with, I don't know, YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels and other platforms. So yeah, I know that I'm biased, but I think that it's going to grow. I'm pretty sure that there are going to be even more money, because maybe you've seen like deals with some people on Spotify, or I don't know if it was Amazon and other platforms, deals with big creators to just remember Joe Rogan when he moved to Spotify and then he moved back to YouTube. So yeah, I think there is a future, which probably means there is going to be bigger competition with bigger creators. But I would say don't let it stop you, and let's see where it goes. I hope it will be exciting for us.
Sure. You mentioned AI, like we are flooded with AI avatars right now. I think I saw that Ruben Hasid actually posts at least one video per day with his AI avatar. I think like in a couple of years, real people will actually still be doing podcasts, or will like Mel Robbins have her own AI avatar that will do the show?
I'm scared to predict. I'm going to say that it's not going to happen because it will remove that human touch, but then it happens. So, I feel like that I often see AI related news, and it's something that I would never expect that would happen before, or that I would just expect in the sci-fi movies. So I would say probably not. But then, as you mentioned, for example, Ruben, I think it might be possible. So one never knows.
I think it's great because it saves you so much time, and on the other hand, you can scale your network content much easier and faster.
That's true.
But on the other hand, you lose the authenticity,
Yeah,
which is the most important thing when you're being creator and building your personal brand.
That's true. I think it comes to the balance, or like, for example, there are so many things that I would never expected that will be on such a high level when it comes to AI. I don't know, for example, video generation or something. I'm not a professional, but I often see it on LinkedIn. Sometime before, I would never expect that we would reach such a point. So I think now, as we are speaking, maybe we will do like a sequel in the future, and we will be thinking about how we discuss this and where it progressed. One never knows.
Yeah, I agree. For the end, I wanted to ask you, like, who's your favorite podcaster?
It will be,
right
as
now.
I mentioned before, Chris Williamson. He's a host of Modern Wisdom. I'm not sure how many episodes he did by now, but I think it's around 800 probably. He releases 3 episodes per week, and I think he's, as I mentioned, amazing interviewer. He's got great questions. I like him as a person, although we don't know each other personally, but I've been listening to him for some time. I watch him even on YouTube, like when he does some vlogs. He's been speaking with some amazing people, I would say literally the top ones. Also his production quality, like what he did, sometimes literally like as if you are watching in the cinemas. So he's number one. And some people love him, some people hate him. I like Joe Rogan as well, although I'm not a fan of listening to our episodes all the time, but again, he's OG, let's be honest. He's the one who speaks with literally the biggest names out there. And sometimes I like to listen to some funny conspiracy theories and MMA and stuff like that. So he's a great one. And I would ask you the same. You said one name before, but who are your favorite ones?
Right now, Rob Dial is definitely my favorite one, number one. Then I would say I love Mel Robbins, just because she's so direct, and the fact that she built such a big empire with the simple sentence, let them theory. I mean, it's nothing new, but she's just the first that wrote a book about it. And I love the way she branded herself around that saying. I actually watched her team is like, I think, 10 to 15 people. It's huge how one podcast, one book can change your life. And that's my question for you, the final one. Do you actually plan for podcasting to become your full-time job, or is it just like a hustle or thing you love to do in your free time?
It's a good question, and I would say that's the answer right now. I would say probably not a full-time job, but one never knows in the future. I still want to continue doing that because I know there is so much room for improvement, so many amazing people to speak to. I sometimes receive beautiful feedback, like when some people mention that, I don't know, it inspires them or it's entertaining or even educated. So I really like it. If it happens full time in the future, I don't know. Maybe I probably not 3 episodes per week like Chris does.
Too much.
Yeah, no, I feel like maybe if I had a team, I love it, but at the same time, I like to do other activities outside, if it makes sense. But again, one never knows.
Tomas, thank you so much for coming. It was great talking to you. Apologies to everyone because I created the event and then went live through the other links. It was not accessible on the published event. I'm so sorry, but it's my first time doing this. I will definitely publish it on the event. It will be accessible on YouTube next week and also on LinkedIn. But otherwise, Tomas, thank you so much again. I'll make sure to follow your path in the next years on LinkedIn and hope to do this again after a while to see
Yeah,
how it went actually.
me too, Al. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like it went much faster. I was maybe a bit nervous in the beginning, but then I enjoyed it a lot. It was a pleasure to speak with you. I will be following and supporting as well. Then thank you everyone who joined us. I hope you enjoyed it. It was valuable to you. And people make sure to support and follow Al for what he's doing because he deserves it. And yeah, thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Tomas. See you soon.
See you.